The Kaprizov negotiations are the big topic in Minnesota, but what will it take to sign Kaprizov? Seth Toupal of Locked On Wild is here to talk about that and a whole lot more next on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here. Welcome, everybody, to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. It is great to welcome back to the show a familiar face and voice to Locked On NHL fans, Seth Toupal of Locked On Wild. And lots going on for the Wild this offseason, but the biggest story, the Kaprizov negotiations. He's coming back from Russia soon. It's supposed to pick up again. What's going on and where are we at?
Yeah, that's the big part of this, Gil. And thanks for having me, by the way. Great to talk a little hockey. We had first big weekend of NFL football, so spent most of my weekend doing that. And most of my weekends just continuing to kind of gear up for the Kirill Kaprizov signing. Now, there have been a lot of people that are concerned that this is taking as long as it is. The expectation was that, maybe this was going to get done as soon as July 1st. And we are in September now, and there still hasn't been any sort of announcement that Kirill Kaprizov is staying, which has led people to kind of go down the path of, well, if he hasn't signed by now, there's some steam. There must be some steam that he's not going to stay. And I think people need to keep in mind, he hasn't been, he just recently got into the United States. I think he's watching the U.S. Open. There have been some stories that he's shared on Instagram. So he is in the U.S. recently, but before that, he hadn't been in the States for most of the offseason. And there are a couple of things at play here. His agent, Paul Theophanos, is notoriously hard to work with. Kind of a guy that likes to kind of make you sit and think about it. Makes it a long process. Just likes the theater of the negotiation. So that has drawn this process out. It drew out the process, his previous contract, to the point that Bill Guerin went down to Florida and they hammered it out in like a day. I don't know if there is the assumption that these negotiations take weeks. This is something that once the two sides get together, they're going to be able to iron this out pretty quickly. The Minnesota Wild know what's at stake with Kirill Kaprizov if he stays, and more importantly, what's at stake if he doesn't. So there's no sort of desire to let this play out any further than it needs to. And I think at this point, Kirill knows what the Wild are. And I don't think this is something that he's going to be looking to draw out any longer than necessary. Once he gets to Minnesota, once he gets to training camp, if it draws out at that point, then yeah, maybe there is a little need to start to sound the alarms. But the Wild's offer is going to give him everything that he's asking for. Term, AAV. It just depends on kind of what he's looking for. And once they get in a room and they hammer it out, I would imagine it'll be signed pretty quickly. But the other part of this is Connor McDavid's deal has to factor in. Not necessarily because, well, how long is McDavid going to stay? How much is he going to sign for? Because if McDavid signs first, then Kaprizov can one-up that. If Kaprizov signs first, then McDavid can one-off that. So I think this is a little bit of a dance between the two to see who gets to say that they're the highest paid player in the NHL for a little bit. So all that factors in, but ultimately I think he knows what he wants to do at this point. It's just a matter of making sure that all the other things that go into a contract are taken care of, and it's just a matter of signing on the dotted line if he wants to stay.
Where do you estimate this is going to go as far as term, as far as money is concerned?
It's interesting because the Wild in Kaprizov's last deal, they wanted to go long, and Kaprizov's agent wanted to go shorter. So they settled on 5 years. I think this time, they'll settle on 6. Because the Wild can offer 2 more years than anyone else can if this gets done before July 1st of next year. They can offer 2 more years. They can offer 8. The most any other team is going to be able to offer him is 6. And as far as the AAV goes, as far as how much money he actually pulls in, I don't think there's any team that is going to be able to top what the Minnesota Wild will offer him. It will not be the money that causes him to potentially leave. It'll be the other factors, but I think ultimately it ends up being a 5 or a 6 year deal, gives him some security, and keeps him in a Minnesota Wild uniform for at least 6 more years.
Talk to me about this offseason. I mean, some interesting moves made, but how do you grade it overall?
I'm going to give it a C. It wasn't a flashy offseason by any means for the Wild, but I think it was a smart offseason. There just were so many deals that were signed by players that chose to stay with the team that they were on. And the 2 guys that did end up, the 2 most notable guys that did end up going elsewhere, Mitch Marner signed an 8-year deal with Vegas. You're probably not going to offer him that. And Nikolai Ehlers was the other big one. And the Wilds, they brought in Nico Sturm, who was a need as far as bottom 6 players go, a center that can come in and can responsibly play in the 4th line, something that the Wilds, they had a lot of guys that filled that spot last year that just really weren't NHL guys. So getting Nico Sturm in to play that role is going to be big. Vladimir Tarasenko is a gamble, but it's a gamble that costs you nothing but taking on the remainder of the salary. And he is somebody that is looking to improve upon what he did last year. Kirill Kaprizov wanted this to happen. He kind of helped make it happen. So it's clear that Tarasenko has Kirill's backing as well. If he pans out and can give them a reliable scorer on that second line, that fills a pretty big need for this team. If he doesn't, then I think that's what we're going to see. That's where we're going to see Bill Guerin be the most aggressive, because the Wild do have cap space. They have assets. They have picks. They have whatever you need to go out and get somebody during the season. So if this team gets off to a good start like they did last year, I think Guerin will look to do something to kind of strengthen that at the deadline now that they actually have the space to do it. If not, then he's going to look to make a move to try to spark something. But I think the biggest move that this team makes will be during the season or at the trade deadline too.
What are the biggest questions facing this team? And I would have to include how big a role a certain rookie defenseman is going to have this year.
Yeah, that is one of the biggest questions for the team this year, Gil, is what do the young players contribute? How much are they asked to contribute this year? That includes Zeev Boyum. That includes highly touted prospect Danila Yurov, who is going to be getting an NHL taste this year. But other prospects like Liam Ogren, like David Jiricek, other guys who are highly touted in the prospect system as well. Jesper Wallstedt, who has an opportunity to be the backup goalie this year. How much are the Wilds going to rely on those players? How much are they going to trust them to grow into the roles that they could fill? We all know, and I stress this is not just a Minnesota Wild problem. It happens throughout the league. Coaches tend to have trust in veterans more than they do in young players. It's just something that happens throughout the league. So do we see the Wild give players an opportunity to kind of learn on the fly and maybe have a little bigger ceiling? Or do we see the Wild rely more on some of the veteran guys that they brought in for tryouts and just for minor league signings too? That'll be an interesting one. Can Vladimir Tarasenko bounce back? That's a big question mark for me as well. And can this team avoid the infirmary this year? Can we avoid having 92 players injured over the course of a season? If the Wilds can cut the injuries down even a little bit, it doesn't have to be like we didn't get hurt at all like the Winnipeg Jets until the end of the season. If they can just avoid major catastrophic injuries, I think that will give them an opportunity to be pretty good this year.
Well, I know you'll have it every step of the way covered. Seth, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
3 words on Google are your friend. Locked On Wild. You can find all of our social media channels there, as well as all the links for the podcast on Apple, Spotify, your favorite platforms, and on YouTube as well. So just search Locked On Wild, and we will have you covered every step of the way.
All right, Seth, thanks so much.
Thank you, Gil.
Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. The NFL season is back, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your first bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Again, bet just $5, and if your first bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Do you like player props? How about building a same-game parlay to try to win even more money? Or you could jump in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your favorite team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Again, visit FanDuel.com to download the app. Check it out today.